Hey everybody, Atelus here. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from the hero first looks. I want to mix things up a little bit, and we're going to be doing an Observing the Nexus. Now, what is it I want to talk about today? I would like to talk a little bit about teamwork. Now, the reason I wanted to bring that up in particular, especially as associated with Heroes of the Storm, is that teamwork in Heroes of the Storm, I think, is different from any other currently existing MOBA. Argue all you want about whether or not it's a MOBA, hero brawler, whatever, but of the genre that it seems to have fallen itself into. Now, why exactly is it different? Now, those of you who have not played might not really know yet about exactly what the specific differences are. However, and also some of you who have played might just not have really, I guess, wrapped your head around it in a way. It's very different, especially if you're very used to League of Legends, or if you're very used to Dota, or, I mean, even games like Smite or anything like that. It's just a little bit different. Now, what exactly affects that? Well, there's a couple major things. One of them, if you look at my video Observing the Nexus on the maps, that's the first big thing. The maps in general, when you play Dota, when you play League of Legends, or any standard kind of MOBA style game, they tend to fall kind of in the same way of playing, basically. I mean, you have the 3 lanes, you have very standard, your goal is the Nexus, there's some minions you kill in between the lanes, and you gank each other, and one person probably lone wolfs and super carries the game, and that's just how it goes. That's how your game goes, and you just roll with it that way. But Heroes of the Storm handles it a little bit differently. For one, your objectives are very different. You look at each map, and each one has very particular goals in mind. However, there becomes kind of a more complex strategy behind just going for those goals. What time do we go for those goals? When can we ignore them and get more out of, you know, letting the other person take the time on the objective while we do something else, like push their base or take down mercenary camps? That's another thing, is you time when are you going to take mercenary camps? Whenever you take those minions in the jungle, it's not like in League of Legends, it's not like in Dota, where you kill them and you get some XP and gold and maybe a buff and you move on. When you kill the mercenary camps in between the lanes, they actually come help you fight. And that sounds like it'd be cool anytime, but when do you get together and start making mercenary camps happen quickly and use those to your advantage? I'll talk a little bit about kind of each map to a point. You know, I did go over the maps fairly thoroughly in my other Observing the Nexus video. But I think one of the most interesting examples of kind of when you should versus when you shouldn't is the Haunted Mines. Now, it's been buffed a couple of times, which is good. So it is a little more of, I guess, kind of an investment. And it kind of helps you out a little bit more. But overall, there's still a lot of, I mean, kind of the standard meta at this point, for those that kind of know the game better and have played a lot, is to ignore the mines entirely. And a lot of people get stuck on, well, we need to go into the mines, because that's the objective. You know, that's what it is. And you'll go down there, and even if your team gets all 100 skulls, your golem dies in no time anyway, and it doesn't matter. You know, it's kind of a non-scenario until the second or third time that you head down into the mines. Honestly, almost the objective, more than actually getting the skulls in the mines, is to go down and kill the people getting the skulls in the mines so you can do other stuff. You know, one of the worst things that can happen in that one is that, you know, you get a fight over the last couple of skulls and then your whole team dies. I mean, that's awful, especially later game when you're not going to come up for a while and the golem's going to get free reign on your base. I mean, it's just, the timing is interesting. And that's one where the moment that those mines go up, if you realize the whole enemy team is dropping into the mines and all the mercenary camps are still available to you, you can just take them. I mean, this is the thing, is all 5 mercenary camps on that map pushing at the same time is better than your golem. You know, it just is. You don't need him. It's interesting. It's an interesting kind of scenario, and in solo queue, you're not going to get a really strong sense of it. It's kind of unfortunate that way, but in solo queue, a lot of the time, I hate the Haunted Mines. I mean, I play on it all the time. Now, no, I don't hate the Haunted Mines as a map. However, of all the ones that I could get in solo queue, it is my least favorite. And the reason for that is it's the one that incites the most rage, because nobody wants to work together and go towards the same goal. It's where you get into the concept that, bad plan executed completely is way better than a good plan done half-assed. That's not the exact. It's me paraphrasing. Give me a break. But going off the top of my head with that. So, shh. Anyway, sometimes if your team is doing something that's not necessarily what you think is the best thing for that one, or for any of the scenarios. I mean, this is the case with all of them. Let's take, for example, Cursed Hollow. Let's take, as an example, probably the most brutal of the scenarios. This is one where if you ignore the scenario, you will get stomped. Like, completely stomped. If your team is just like, no, guys, let them get the tribute. We're just going to push. Do it. I mean, this is the thing. If your team is fighting tooth and nail against you with it, there's nothing you can do on your own. You can't go running down there by yourself and stop them getting the tribute. There's just nothing you can do about it at that point. So what you should do at that juncture is to just go with what your team's doing. You know, it might sound kind of counterproductive sometimes, and frankly, a lot of the time in solo queue, your teams are going to be counterproductive. They are going to do things that just don't make sense. They're just backwards. But a lot of the time you'll find that just kind of being in agreement, even if you don't like it, can often win you games you wouldn't expect. And that's a little bit about kind of the scenarios, and I'll get more on that later, but I want to go into my second topic, partly because it's one of a bit of controversy. It's kind of, I don't know, it's been interesting. It's been something people have sort of fought back and forth on ever since the technical alpha popped up. And what that is the shared XP system. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with it, basically, every person on your team shares the same XP pool. It's kind of interesting. So, if your entire team decides to push one lane, you'll get a lot of power in that lane, but your team as a whole will lose out on XP because another lane has minions dying in it that you're not getting experience from. It encourages you to spread out. However, it also reduces the ability of a single person to lone wolf carry a game. Now, a lot of people go, well, now I'm being drugged down by all these people in the solo queues, and it's bad. Well, this is the thing. You playing well still has a big effect on how that XP goes. I mean, that's just how it is. Now, sometimes it can't be helped, but honestly, you get the same issue in other games, League of Legends, Dota, whatever. You get the same problem. Honestly, the fact that the team shares XP like that actually kind of reduces snowballing in a lot of ways. You look at, I don't know how many games it is I've played now, where you're behind 2, maybe 3 levels and just getting stomped, and you get one good team fight where all 5 members of the enemy team die and nobody on your team does. Like, it happens. It just does. People get sloppy and they get taken out by, a surprise from the team that they've been stomping into the dirt, and you'd be amazed how quickly you catch up. You'll gain 2 to 3 levels off that. You'll gain straight up 2 to 3 levels off that team fight alone. It's incredible. Also, in this latest patch, Blizzard introduced some countermeasures to reduce the effects of snowballs. I don't know what that means because I had absolutely no actual details, but, that was in there. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about kind of the ups and downs of this. Heroes of the Storm, overall, is intended to be a much easier to approach experience. I mean, that's the goal, really. That's what it's going for, is to be something that people who, even if you haven't really played the genre of games, you can easily get in on it. There's a few things that affects that, such as, the lack of items, which I'll talk about that probably in a separate video, but things like the shared XP is one that I think can be really great for both people who are entering the genre and for people who have played it for a while. I'm going to jump onto kind of an entirely different genre, but I look at StarCraft. One of the reasons I don't play StarCraft, I used to play competitively for my area. I used to play a lot, like original StarCraft when I was younger. And the reason I kind of stopped playing it after a while, like actually kind of trying to be competitive online and whatnot, was you start the game and you just kind of do the same thing again. like again and again and again. You know, and there'll be slight variations, but for the most part, it's like, all right, let's get my workers on the resources. At this time, I'm going to build this. At this time, I'm going to build this. This will be my build order. This is how it's going to play out, basically beginning to end. And then the only variation you start to see is a little further into the game when stuff starts happening. So it's got this really boring kind of beginning. And you'll get the same thing in Dota. I feel like Dota to a slightly lesser extent sometimes, but League of Legends, the laning phase sometimes can be very long. And they've reduced that in a lot of ways, but the laning phase can be very long. You just go and you just last hit minions. You last hit minions, and you just keep last hitting minions. And then you get gold. And then you go back to your town, and you buy items. And don't get me wrong, I've played League of Legends for quite a while. I mean, I'm wearing a Swain t-shirt right now. Like, I've played the game for a while. And I think it's a fantastic game, but I don't think it can be compared. I don't think this, I guess, style can be compared as kind of fighting for the same ground. And the reason I say that is the shared XP system is intended to create an entirely different style of game right from the beginning. All you need is a single hero in a lane to be getting the XP from it. And even if you're missing a lane for a short time, it's not a huge deal. It really doesn't get you behind that much, especially if you're able to get a kill off of leaving that lane. So I've seen so many games where, like, roamers, like 100% roamers, are much more common in Heroes than they are in any other MOBA type game that I've seen. You're able to just jump from lane to lane, and even if you aren't getting kills, this is the big important part of it. Take, for example, a jungler in League of Legends or Dota. You have to spend as much time as possible, and you have to be very fast about getting around and jungling and you know, deciding kind of on what balance you will be killing the camps in the jungle versus how much you're going to try to gank and see if you can get XP that way, and you can get behind if you decide to, you know, just try multiple ganks that fail. You know, it's lots of wacky stuff that affects it's complex. Like, you're just having to think about all these things at the same time. And as a guy who I spent most of my time in League of Legends as a jungler, it can be exhausting. I mean, you get behind, and it's very difficult to get back up to where you were unless you're playing certain champions. Whereas in Heroes of the Storm, because of the shared XP system, it allows the game to be high speed, very fast paced, and very interesting right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. You can have characters like, I mean, you'll see it the most commonly with, if you watch any game where I play Nova, which I only have, I think, the one for the first look up, but eventually, like, in time, I'll have kind of more gameplay of Nova up, and to an extent, Zeratul. I think less so for me, but that's just my playstyle. He's perfectly capable of it. With Nova, I'm not in lane a lot. You know, you hop in your lane and poke stuff, but you spend a lot of your time kind of poking in and out of the jungle and just trying to take on, you know, usually I'm basically planing in two lanes at the same time. You run up to one lane, shoot at people for a bit, run down to another lane, shoot at people for a bit. A lot of the time, I mean, you can go for the surprise factor, but a lot of the time, you get a lot out of it just keeping them nervous all the time. You keep your ally alive just by kind of being in the area and showing yourself once in a while. People are less likely to commit into a fight when they see that kind of a thing going on. And again, I brought up Zeratul. He's perfectly capable of doing the same thing, and there's other characters that do it quite well. You've got people that just get around quickly. Look at Brightwing, for example, kind of the newer character, or look at Elite Tarn Chieftain, where you can gank a lane out of nowhere, and it's okay that you're kind of not in your lane for a while, even if you don't get the kill. It's fine. But the reason for that is the shared XP system. You don't look at it as a game pacing mechanic. You look at it as just like a ability for your team to have lone wolves or not. You know, like, people I think don't think really extensively about exactly what that shared XP system does, but it allows the game to be high speed and high paced right out the gate, right from the beginning. I mean, it keeps things very interesting. It allows for constant roaming. You look at maps like Blackheart's Bay. That's a big one, because Blackheart's Bay, a lot of the time, there's some teams where they don't, but a lot of the time, you won't be in the lanes hardly at all. Everybody will just be running around in a constant skirmish. I mean, it's a very high-intensity battleground. It's just constant fighting. And that's great. I mean, I think that makes it far more interesting. At least in my eyes, it's a lot more interesting. You know, some of the maps kind of encourage hanging out in your lane a little bit more. Dragonshire, I think, is the biggest one that comes to mind, because you have, you know, an objective in the top lane, the bottom lane, and the center that all kind of have to be controlled to a degree. So that one, I think, rewards kind of a slower style. Dragonshire tends to be a bit of a slower game for me, because you're pretty much all staying split up. You get a lot less of the big 5-man team fights until until one of the teams actually gets both of the objectives and takes the dragon. And then, even then, a lot of the time it won't turn into a full team fight. It turns into split pushing and things like that. But what can you really do with teamwork in a game largely ruled by solo queue? And the reason I say it's kind of ruled by solo queue is there's a very limited number of invites that have gone out up to this point. I have, I think, one time seen more than 2,000 people online at once. And a lot of the time people are playing it and their friends are still waiting on their alpha keys or their alpha access, whatever. That's, you know, a situation with me. I have multiple friends that would love to play, but they can't because they have not received access to the game. And that's just how that goes, you know? So I solo queue. I solo queue because I don't really have friends that play Heroes of the Storm as it is right now. And so what do you do? I mean, what really can you do? Well, you could hunt on the forums or, you know, what I usually do. I friend request most people I play with. And the reason for that is if, you know, you play with them, if you kind of invite them to stuff as you play, you get more XP out of it. Which is a pretty nice feature. The friend bonus for experience. But, I mean, do you get on with people and go like, hey, do you have Skype? I mean, that's common. Some people do that. I've done that in League of Legends a number of times. Where you get on and actually have everybody, you know, get on Skype and do your thing that way. And that can be fairly interesting, but sometimes it's just really not an option in a big way. You know, and that's a lot of the time kind of how it is with me. It's not often I get on... I don't think I've played a game on voice chat with someone. I just haven't. But so how exactly do you affect kind of teamwork in a solo queue environment? Well, you just kind of have to be a little more humble, I think. I mean, that's kind of where I stand with it. You have to kind of be willing to be the one to give up a little bit of your lone wolf status and a little bit of your leadership status. And I think that's the case with any MOBA, really. Any MOBA. Any game in the genre. There's a degree of kind of having to let go of your own ego a little bit. And it kind of sucks. But honestly, once you kind of learn to do that, which anybody who's watched some of my videos knows, I have those moments. And for the most part, I don't type anything to other people. I'm perfectly willing to rage and be bitchy through voice, to a point. I mean, I don't freak out, but I'm willing to do that. It doesn't bother me that much, because I'm not hurting anyone at that point. I'm just being frustrated, you know, and that happens. But inside the game, it doesn't help at all to just, frankly, to use the best term I can think for it, it's pointless to just give someone shit all the time. You know, it just is. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't do anything for anybody on the team. People go like, well, if I call this guy an idiot, then he'll get his act together, and he doesn't. I mean, when people say stuff like that to me, a lot of the time I play much worse. I mean, I get irritated with it. I don't enjoy it. And a lot of that rage and a lot of that kind of name-calling and being on each other's heads, I mean, it's going into a slightly different subject. But a lot of that comes from people who aren't able to kind of just let their own ego go for a minute and be part of the team for once, you know? That's a lot of people like that end up having very negative play experiences across the board because they're not willing to be part of a 5-man team, which a lot of the time in a lot of MOBAs, people are playing them for the kind of power trip experience in a way of those occasional games where they got in there and carried the hell out of it, and their whole team praised them as gods or something. And it's one thing where I think it would create a better community. I think this kind of shared XP system is going to create a better community in a way, but it's going to take some time, and there's going to be a lot of people with rage problems for a while. I mean, there's people who just can't let go. And that's, I think, a lot of the same people you'll see. You'll get on forums, you'll get into games, and people will rage about that system. And I think it's that mentality. And there might be other reasons for disliking it. And I'm not discounting, I'm not saying my opinion on that is the be-all, end-all, but I think it's a good thing overall. And I think it encourages teamwork in a way that generally speaking, other MOBAs just don't try to do. Which is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I play the games not for that power trip. I mean, it's kind of fun. It's fun, and you get in as Illidan and do some crazy stuff, but it's the same as I really enjoy a lot of support-type characters or a lot of tank-type characters because you get to enable really cool stuff for your team. And I think that's a lot of fun. I think that's just as interesting when you get to be the one who enabled your team to just go insane in a team fight, when it was your, you know, initiate or your healing or your whatever that allowed your team to just really, really shine. And that's when you get the really cool wins where everybody's like, hey guys, that was awesome, you know, at the end. You get those really fun games. Very enjoyable. I'm a huge fan of it. Anyway. So this is my little rant on just kind of teamwork in general, and also the shared XP system, which is really, I think, more the subject I wanted to kind of touch on, because I think it's one that's a little bit misunderstood. So I just wanted to touch on that, talk to you guys a little bit about it, let you know sort of what I think from my humble opinion on just how that affects the game overall. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little while, guys. Yet again, just a couple little things I have been bringing up at the end of a couple of different episodes here. I've got a couple things in the works. I'm keeping a really close eye on Blizzard's like news feed in general, and their Twitter and things like that. What I'm really keeping an eye out for is exactly when we'll be seeing observer mode in custom games. Basically, as soon as that goes up, this might be a question. This is actually a question I've been asked through emails a couple times about kind of why this is happening. Tournaments and any kind of play like that don't exist right now because they're almost impossible to cast. The reason for that is the lack of observer mode. If you can't be in the game controlling the camera, you really can't cast a game effectively. Now, I have some ideas for how it could be done, but it would be pretty shoddy, and it wouldn't be much fun to watch. And it would also be more work than any one person should ever have to do for something like that. So that's something I'm keeping an eye out for. I definitely want to try to get kind of some interest generated in the idea of doing just kind of a fun, casual, like, breaking into Heroes of the Storm tournament. I mean, that's just all I want to do, is just get some people together, get some people talking, and start seeing sort of what the meta for the game looks like outside of just, you know, the games I get to play once in a while. You know, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think it'll be very interesting. The servers are down right now, so hopefully I'm going to be able to get my video done for Tychus pretty soon. I did one, but it was legit one of the worst games of Heroes of the Storm I've ever played. It was pretty bad, like, stomped into the dirt. Like, so bad that I just stopped the recording partway through. Like, it was not even fun. Just not even fun at all. You know, I don't mind putting my losses up, but it wouldn't have been any fun to watch. But I'm excited to get to that. Tychus is a lot of fun. He's pretty cool. I got a couple practice games in with him. So, yeah, we'll be hopefully getting that up fairly quickly. I am going to be heading out of town fairly soon for like a week and a half, and I'm going to try to get some sort of backlog stuff recorded before I go, so that I can kind of continue to be posting stuff. And I'm going to be probably trying to do a couple things with a friend of mine while I'm out as well. So, you know, keep an eye out for that. Like I say, I mean, like and subscribe if you want to see any more of the kind of fun stuff I'm doing. It'll be a lot of fun. We're gonna keep this going. I'm getting some good momentum going. I'm really excited about kind of everything that's happened with this channel so far, and I'm definitely gonna be keeping that up. If you have any comments or questions for me at all, definitely. I mean, you can leave a comment here on really any of my videos. I have a small enough viewer base that I'll get anything and see it pretty quickly. But also, you can send me an email at AtelusGamer@gmail.com. Of course, just like the channel that you're watching right now, AtelusGamer@gmail. My name has been Atelus, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little while, and I will see you guys next time. It's next time. It's next time. It's next time. what this does